This is usually a nice morning.
Hey guys, we are live, and we're live here on Sensible Prepper, and we're ready for a big day. We're going to kind of do things a little differently today, but we have Robbie Wheaton with us.
Hey guys, good to be back.
Yep, good to have Robbie with us from Wheaton Arms. Check out wheatonarms.com. A lot of Glock aftermarket parts, the best flat face trigger for Glock on the market, barrels, conversion barrels, all kind of stuff. And he does custom gun work. He's been a gunsmith for over 20 years.
Yep.
And so he brings a lot to the table, and we really appreciate Robbie. Also, GoMed Gear, check out their medical supplies at gomedgear.com. And
Great stuff.
Great stuff, great source. And we also appreciate Sarah Mack. She will be over answering or sending us questions that you guys give us.
Heckling us behind the scenes.
Yeah, heckling us behind the scenes, keeping us in line. But you can start answering. You can start asking questions. She's going to kind of build up some of the questions. So when we get to the question and answer part, we'll already have some ready. So don't feel like you have to wait. But what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit, and this really is more toward survival, toward things that are going on and that affect survival. And so we're going to kind of keep it at that, and we want to be sensible. Now, first off, to be sensible is, well, let me do this. We do have a sponsor today, and that is Exotac fire starters, all made in the USA. They have an incredible line of different type fire starting methods and different things. I mean, it's my favorite, and it's been my favorite for a number of years.
It is the hottest one out there.
They are awesome. It's hot, boy. It's real hot.
I got dad jokes today.
Yeah, all right. We need it. But yeah, they're an excellent company, again, down in Georgia, and they make the best fire steels on the market. And you get a 20% off using Sootch 00 with the link down below in the description. And the link's down there. So 20% off is pretty significant.
Yeah. Yes,
so check it out. And we really appreciate those guys just offering the discount to you guys. And so, and fire, guys, is a basic element that you need. And you need to learn fire starting, period. Whether it's getting your barbecue started or your fire pit or whatever, but also in survival situations. So check out Exotac and get 20% off. All right. One thing, I kind of want to start out with is, right now there's so many things, there's so many threats.
Yeah.
I mean, it's coming from every direction. And if you're not careful, you become paralyzed with fear. One thing about fear is that 99% of the things that you fear will never come to pass. They just don't come to pass. And 99% of those things that do come to pass, typically they're not as bad as you think they're going to be.
Mm-hmm.
When you're in the moment, you're able to cope and to do and to take care of things. Now, there are definitely things like, somebody killed in a car accident that's really close to you, those kind of things. I mean, they just happen, and, there's nothing you can do about it. But when it comes to fear, guys, just fear is something that paralyzes you, and it's something that it doesn't do any good.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you need to be aware, you need to know what things are going on. But like for me, if I'm not careful, I get on Fox News or whatever news I'm looking at, because I look at different media sources. And, it builds up this concern, this worry, and this fear, and you're seeing this and that happening, and it paralyzes you. It actually locks you down. And so what we need to really consider, and that's really what this channel is all about, is, guys, you need to be aware of what's going on, but you need to be proactive in taking care of the things that you fear. So if it's, let's say food, you need to have food. If you're concerned about shortages, which we'll probably have some shortages coming up this fall.
Yes.
I mean, we're seeing a lot of signs there. Guys, don't worry about that. Just get yourself prepared. Making sure you have your basic needs. Make sure you have your toilet paper. I mean, we've seen that already.
Yep.
And, it's still not back to normal. And, or let's say COVID-19. I mean, guys, honestly, now we're not getting the vaccination because that's just the way we feel because of the research we've done. But even though you have the vaccine, you can still get it. In fact, it can be really rough. So just, don't fear. Just get your personal hygiene together. Keep your hands washed. Keep them away from your face. Just do those basic things that you do during flu season.
That's right. That's right.
And, those are the kind of things that you need to consider, is that we need to be active in the things that we can help, because a lot of these things you can't help. We can't help what's going on. And so we have to do our best, just like what's going on in Afghanistan. And, you know, we have thousands and thousands upon thousands of refugees coming over. A lot of you have family members that are there in Afghanistan, you know, and it's fearful. But the thing is, with all these refugees coming in, some of the things that can happen, you know, I mean, are they vetting them correctly? I mean, what's going on? And so those kind of things, you know, you need to be aware that we could have more terrorist activity here in the U.S., but you don't need to worry about it. You just need to keep your eyes open, just like with any situation, self-defense, situational awareness.
It's huge. It's absolutely huge. Know your surroundings. Know what's going on around you. You know, don't ever be in what's commonly referred to as condition green.
Right.
You know, where you're just oblivious to everything that's going on around you. You know, the world is all just flowers and sunshine and rainbows, and you know that's because it just isn't reality.
No.
You know, the reality is there are bad people out there that do bad things, and you have to be aware of what's going on around you all the time. It's called condition yellow. You always want to try and stay in condition yellow, where you're acutely aware of the people that are around you, your surroundings, everything, you know, in any type of situation. So you have a plan.
Right.
You know what you're going to do in multiple different situations.
Right.
And that way you don't, you know, get caught with your pants down.
Right. So yeah, and that's exactly right. And you can see things ahead of way. You know, if you're going down into a certain way and you see something up there that doesn't look right, just take another route.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, there is some things that you can do. And, you know, that's one of the reasons why, again, we're here. So what we want to do is kind of just open it up. This is going to be a little different. We're going to take questions, and these can do with any kind of survival kind of, you know, mindset, any kind of prepping, or even self-defense. And if you have those kind of questions, you know, that's what we want to do, is to go ahead and get those answered. Now, I'm going to tell you, we're not going to start answering questions or taking questions until we get a few going. So if you guys have them, go ahead and start putting them in there so we can get things rolling. Otherwise, we're going to sit here and Robbie and I'll start talking about, you know, guns or something that we just personally like. And
what we're going to do the next hour after the show ends.
yeah, we'll just sit around for another hour and hang out. So I don't want you guys to be too quiet, because that's what we're opening up. Or next time we won't have much Q&A. We'll just do a regular deal. So how we doing over there? We got some? You guys are going to be quiet today. I'm telling you, man. We go ahead and open it up. And there you go. Okay, well, let's talk about self-defense. You know, one of the things, especially a lot of survival people, survival-minded or prepping-minded people, you know, they tend to say, you know, they kind of have this thing of distrust. And so a lot of times they won't get a concealed carry permit. Let me just say this about that. If you're on a bug out and, you know, and chaos is reigning all around, one thing that Profile said in Argentina during their collapse, their economic collapse in 2001, is that the police won't be there to save you, but they sure as heck will be there to arrest you. And a lot of times when we think about survival and think about, you know, coming SHTF even, is it doesn't mean that we're going back to the Stone Age. Mm-hmm. It does mean there's typically going to be some kind of force, because even if the police force is pushed aside, there will be some kind of force to take up in that vacuum.
That's right.
So, you know, that's one thing to kind of consider. But guys, don't get your concealed carry permit. If you're online looking at guns anyway, you're already on a list or whatever. So the best thing to do is to go ahead and make yourself legitimate and to get that, you know, your concealed carry permit, because the one thing you don't want to do is be, you know, trying to evacuate and trying to get out of Dodge and get caught somewhere with a firearm on you and you not have a concealed carry permit. And now there are states that have constitutional carry, and that's great. But, you know, if you're going to another state, a lot of times they don't necessarily have it. So having your concealed carry permit legitimizes you to be able to carry a firearm.
That's right. And you know, one of the big things with that is knowing your reciprocity laws with different states, you know, where you can carry inside your vehicle, where you can carry on your person with a permit, without a permit, you know, just being aware of what the laws are in other states if you are going to be traveling. And that goes, you know, toward a SHTF situation or just your everyday life. And if you're going to be traveling, make sure you know how to carry your firearm properly, how to store it properly in your vehicle when you're traveling, to keep yourself from getting into, you know, any kind of a pinch with police and law enforcement.
All right, we have some questions.
Kevin Caceres asks, are we creating the ammo shortage with us going crazy over the Russian ban?
Well, the ammo shortage has been pretty heavy for the past year,
Yeah.
or really ever since COVID-19 kind of hit.
Mhm.
People just went out and bought ammo. The one thing that's going to happen, yes, we'll have an ammo shortage with steel cased ammo and different types of ammo that we're getting from those places. I heard the other day that, Tula is definitely Russian made,
Right.
but like Wolf, from what I understand, it's made in Taiwan.
Mm-hmm.
And so, there's still going to be steel cased ammo at fairly reasonable prices out there, but it's going to be shortages. We're going to see shortages. One thing to realize is, and this is what people do, is I can say, well, I don't want to be a part of the shortage, to create a shortage. On the other hand, if you need ammo, you need to go buy some ammo.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is those that are buying it up, like they did the 22 long rifle a few years ago.
That's right.
I mean, they were just buying it up and then they would take it to the flea market and sell it. Well, that's not really right. And the best thing to do is to buy what you need, what you're going to use.
Kel Amlin asked, have you noticed any food or supply shortages?
Not
a whole lot.
Prices have gone up,
yes.
And that's one of the indicators that there is shortages, is supply and demand. So as we see prices go up, and guys, I'm gonna tell you, and we've talked about this in the past, labor shortage is the biggest problem.
Yeah.
And all these places, in fact, one of my favorite restaurants that I love to go to, I've been going there for 30 years. They've had to shorten their hours because, and it's a big sign out there. It says, we've had to shorten our hours due to labor shortages.
Mm-hmm.
The McDonald's right up here up the street, they're offering a $200 sign-up bonus if you come to work for them. And you saw.
I drove past a gas station taking my boys to school the other day that had a sign, one of the big lit up billboards out in front of their gas station, that was a $2,000 signing bonus to get people to come to work there at a gas station.
So
$2,000.
Yeah. So if you consider what's going on
Yep.
in the guys that are actually picking the crops or packing the food or processing it, everybody's having labor
Yep.
shortages.
When, one of the things that I have seen in the grocery stores is a decline in the quality of the fresh fruits and vegetables.
Oh.
They don't seem to, they don't last as long. You get it home and normally a lot of stuff will last like a week or so before it starts going bad with some of your fruits and vegetables. You may have 2 or 3 days
Wow.
before it starts going bad. And I attribute a lot of that to they're late being picked, late being packaged, late getting delivered to the stores.
And transportation.
That's right. So the delays in transportation are causing a lot of these fruits and vegetables to spoil or be close to spoiling before they ever get on the shelves.
Well, and also there is a drought out west, and they do produce a lot of our food. And so that is definitely going to impact us as well.
Kevin Walker asked, Don, when are you going to do a taste test video on freeze-dried meals? So many of them taste like dog bark.
That's one that we had talked about doing about 1.5 years ago, was that video. And we had talked about doing it live. It's kind of like this, where we had a bunch of the different freeze-dried stuff and some of the long-term storage foods, and cracking it open and going through and sampling a bunch of the different stuff. So that's something that we had talked about doing in the past, and I'm glad you brought it up, because I think that would be a great video for us to do.
That would be. I think that would be great. Hey, Kevin, how you doing? This taking these, like I saw, in fact, I just saw a video. It said Mountain House, and I think it was Backpacker's Pantry or one of them, and it talked about, one of them's not even close, and I thought that's interesting. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Mm-hmm.
That's something we definitely want to do. In fact, with our prepper group, we actually did some of that.
Yep.
We fixed some different foods, and we just did it here at the house, and we actually made a meal of it. So we had a bunch of different ones and tried them out. So that's something we definitely need to share on YouTube. So yes, we will.
Terry Beeson asked, better to lock down in place or try to get with others?
Well, you want to have a community. I mean, it's important, but honestly, locking down in place, that's your home. That's where your supplies are. That's where your stuff is.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get out on the road, you're very vulnerable. But if you do it ahead of time, this is the big key. And this is the key with all of this, whether it's buying food, or even toilet paper. Like in 2020, when everything started to happen,
Mm-hmm.
I had already heard from China that things were going down. And so I told Shannon, I said, we need to make sure that we top off a lot of our supplies, make sure we have them. She took off, went and got a bunch of toilet paper, got a bunch of stuff to make sure. We already had some, but she wanted to make sure we had, what we needed. And there was supplies.
Mm-hmm.
But when the panic starts, it's all over.
It's too late already.
Because you're against the curve. And it's the same thing here. If you need to get out of town, if you feel like things are ratcheting up and you're like, man, this is not looking good, get out of town before it becomes dangerous. Especially those in urban areas. You guys are going to need to really watch what's going on. And with the defund the police, I've seen out in Oregon, the police now have hands off and they're letting these people fight in the streets. It's absolutely crazy. So looking for the signs, but not waiting. Just like the gas shortage we had. I started hearing about it a few days before. And I ran up to the gas station and nobody was there. I mean, there was regular gas, whatever. 2 days later, everything was gone. Right. So ahead of the curve, that's the key. So when your gut tells you, you know what, it's time to leave. Don't wait around. Go ahead, go for the weekend if for nothing else and take some supplies with you just in case. You can always come back. But honestly, if you are like we are, we're out from any kind of urban area. I mean, a few miles from it. So this is the place we plan to hang out in. And we have a group around us of like-minded people that we can, work together.
That's right.
A. Crawford asked, I've got a Ruger Predator 308 suppressed. Do you have any round recommendations? Hornady Super Performance 168 grain is grouping 3 inches. Hornady Black is grouping around 1 inch. Hornady 178 100 precision is 1.5.
I'll let Robbie take this one.
So the first thing I would probably look at is maybe recrowning the barrel. It sounds like the crown may be off and that's causing your groups to open up some. And then check your suppressor also and make sure that your projectiles aren't rubbing your end cap on the exit. Make sure there's not like a copper streak on one of the edges on your end cap or one of your baffles. So I would start with that instead of looking at 1 inch to 3 inches with good quality ammunition is still quite large for a 100-yard group. Unless you're talking about 500-yard groups, and then I'd be like, okay, that's probably acceptable. But for 100-yard groups, those are pretty big. So I would look at a few other things other than ammunition first, starting with the crown on the barrel, and then also the suppressor. Make sure you're not having any kind of baffle rubs or anything with it.
But what ammo, if you wanted to pick a certain type ammo, what would you? Because I know you tried different ones.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff he named off is some of the stuff that I use. The Hornady Black is some great ammo. Yeah, I use that a lot for my range ammo. The Hornady Hunters, the ELDs, that's what I hunt with. For our whitetail deer around here. I love the ELDs. It's some of the most accurate ammo I've used. And then for some of my hand-loaded match ammo that I do for my 308. The 168 grain Hornady hollow point boat tails have been some of the most consistent that I've used. So I've had great results with those. And all of that stuff should be able to shoot under 1 inch at 100 yards.
Right. It really should. I mean, some rifles tend to favor certain type ammos, but he's right. I mean, you don't get those large groups.
Yep. Nicholas Collins asked, if you have city water, do you prep water storage?
Yes, water can be contaminated. It can be contaminated in just normal ways, but it can also be contaminated in a terrorist kind of thing. Right. And one of the things that's gone on with some of these kind of outside groups is there's been discussion about actually poisoning water and disrupting civil services. Listen, rain catchment systems, they're very easy. You can attach them to a gutter system. If you don't have a gutter, it's fairly easy to put up a gutter system.
That's right.
Just for part of your house if you need to. But rain catchment's important. Also, I would look at the big Berkey water filtration. We use it on an everyday basis, but each filter will filter 3,000 gallons of water. And ours has 4 filters in it, and we have backup filters. So I would definitely look at some ways to be able to get water. Even if you get rainwater, you're going to need to filter it. So the big Berkey to me is a big one.
Yep.
But yes, we have city water that comes here, even though we live out in the country. I mean, it's water, public water, and it can be contaminated or something can happen. Pipes can bust. There's a lot of things, and water is number one. Water beside air, but water is. You can only live 3 days without water. So you need to have at least 1 gallon of water per person per day. That's minimum, very minimum.
Kale asks, in Sweden, the public is not allowed guns. What would you recommend as the next best defense?
Well, it's really according to what you can use. Obviously, a good billy club of some sort. One thing that I use for personal defense, it's a non-lethal option, is a good flashlight. and you can carry that anywhere. Something that you can actually fit in your hand that'll extend a little bit past your hand. Crenulated bezel, if they will allow that. But even this minimal crenulated bezel on this little Warrior Mini 2 from Olight. This is a great light. And, you know, that's one of the things, to me, that's one of my first lines of defense. If you can use any kind of pepper spray, you know, to get out of the situation. Of course, a knife is something, you know, and again, I'm sure that you probably can't carry a knife necessarily. I know a lot of countries and even areas here in the U.S. are kind of tough on that.
You know, I like things that allow you to be able to create distance and separation. And you know, pepper spray is a really good one, especially if you can get some of the little larger cans, you know, not just the little keychain models, but you get some of the little larger cans that have a big fog. It's going to allow you to create separation from someone that's attacking you, and to be able to get yourself out of that environment, that situation.
You know, Saber Red is one of the best.
Yep.
Saber makes some of the, in fact, military law enforcement, they use Saber Red. So I would highly recommend that. Be careful not to pick up a little gas station, you know, keychain thing, because they're not necessarily all that great. I think Palm makes a good one. And I know John over at Active Self Protection promotes that. But yes, I mean, there are some options. In fact, I've even got one video on the Sensible Prepper channel. It's improvised weapons. You can even take a magazine or newspaper and you roll it up really tight. And it's actually, the CIA used to use those.
Yeah.
And you can use the end of it like a magazine. It is hard as a rock. Umbrellas, things like that. But you know, you just have to look at different ideas. Tactical pens, if you can carry that. I mean, that's a nice pen. That's all aluminum, and it gives you somewhat of a self-defense option.
One of the things with all of the, you know, a lot of the different suggestions that you're making is you have to learn unarmed striking. You need to learn how to strike. Okay, whether you're using a flashlight, a pen, an umbrella, all of these are striking tools. So you need to be able to take some classes that will really teach you how to properly strike, so you don't break your hands or your wrist, and be able to strike properly, be able to strike hard, be able to strike fast, and know when to strike and how to strike.
Well, and two, that goes, I took martial arts for over 20 years. And, you know, so I definitely feel, and if I lived in Europe, that would be one of the first lines of defense is martial arts.
Absolutely.
Martial arts training. So, you know, that's something also to consider.
Rob Gray asks, when stocking up on canned meat, example tuna, etc., should you look at what is stored in oil or water?
I would say, well, you know, oil can get rancid.
That's right.
It can turn rancid. You know, that is something that, you know, that's a good question. And it's one that I probably need to look into a little bit more. The one thing about any kind of canned processing now is the controls and the sanitary environment that they can, and the heat and the pressures they use actually seal those cans up better than they ever have. Yep. And they're lined instead of just that metal. And so it actually helps protect what's in it. As far as vegetables and most of your fruits, unless it's high in acid, like oranges, mandarin oranges are terrible, or tomatoes, they can actually eat through the can. But with the lining that they have on there, it protects it. But canned vegetables, that's indefinite. You can keep those for 100 years, as long as they're kept in cooler storage. And that's one thing you want to do, is make sure it's in a place that is temperature controlled, in a dark closet, things like that. That would extend the life. But, you know, as far as canned meat, that's something that I probably need to do a little more research before I answer that.
You know, just from what I've seen from personal experience with some different canned meats, the majority of your canned meats are canned in water, with tuna being one of the few that's actually canned in oil. So if you get like canned beef, stew meats, stuff like that, all of that's canned in water.
That's true.
And then your tuna's canned in water as well, but then they offer a secondary that's canned in oil. And I think that may be more geared towards someone that just looks for the tuna that has the oil in it. But if it was me personally, I think the water is probably going to be a longer, more stable solution than the oil, just because most other meats are canned in water as well.
Might be a good subject for a future video.
YG8 Flyfisher 87 asks, hey guys, thanks for the great video as always. Best option for an EDC folding knife?
Oh, there's a lot of options out there. A lot of options. I'll tell you a fairly reasonable compared for the quality
Mm-hmm.
is the Gerber fastball.
Yeah.
It is an excellent little EDC knife. It comes out really fast, and it's made in the USA, but I think they're around $100.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of like the SOG knives.
Yep, SOG makes good knives.
Good steel, easy to sharpen, really lightweight. But I tell you, one of the things that I like more about the knife than anything else is the pocket clip. It's got a almost indestructible pocket clip on them. And if you carry a knife every single day, you know how rough you are on pocket clips. You catch it on something, you end up bending it, it ends up snapping. It doesn't hang in your pocket right anymore. Now it's hanging off halfway off the knife. You break screws on it. The pocket clip on the SOG is whatever kind of spring steel they use. I have never sprung that thing to where it wouldn't snap back on the side of the knife.
Right.
And I've hung it on everything under the sun, and it just goes click and snaps right back on. So for me, that is a good, inexpensive option for a knife that's a really good quality blade.
But now, if you're looking just what is the knife that I would carry, I like ZT Tolerant. ZT, zero tolerance knives. They're actually a Kershaw. It's their premium line. They're expensive, but they're great knives. I carry a Microtech LUDT, which is an automatic knife. And Microtech makes incredible knives.
Yep.
CRKT makes good knives. Now, Benchmade has been my benchmark for a long time.
Yep.
And the Barrage was one of my top knives. I mean, I carried it for 10 years. But then Benchmade started giving to liberal causes and doing some things that I just had to stop using.
Yeah.
I still keep them because I love them. I'm hoping Benchmade will have see the light or something.
Mm-hmm.
But
Spyderco makes good knives.
Spyderco makes excellent knives. That is another brand that to me that's one of my tops.
But if I had no budget EDC knife, it would be the Microtech.
Yeah. Or the zero tolerance.
Or the zero tolerance. Yeah, they are.
Juan Trillo asks, what ways do you guys recommend to fund our preps?
First off, I would live within my means. One of the things that people used to say to me was, well, I can't afford it. I can't do. Well, then don't go to Disney World every year, or and tailor your budget to a little bit of a stricter line.
Yep.
I think a lot of times we go out to eat, we go to movies, we go to these places, and we do this stuff, and then we say, well, we can't afford to prep. Yes, you can afford to prep, because really, if you just pick up a few cans of food every time you go to the grocery store and just add to it,
that's right.
Eat at home more, prepare your food and don't just go with all the processed stuff, and you can get yourself in better shape. Some of the things you might be doing, back off of it. Or let me give you this one. Get another job, because there's a bazillion companies out there that need help, and get a part-time job. I've always had a side gig.
Yeah.
I know you have to.
Oh, yeah.
We always have side gigs, and there's something to earn money, because if you need it, you need to make it. And so to get your preps and to ensure the safety for your family, find ways. Another thing you can do is a yard sale. Have a yard sale, put out a bunch of stuff that you're not using, and reinvest it into things that are going to be more
That's
lasting.
Right. Absolutely.
In fact, I think I did a video just a while back about that, about how to, some things that you can do to be able to prep. And there's also free things you can do. I've got a video. It's just, you just need to put up free things, preppers do. And it's like about 20 different things that you can do to be able to prep. So trading, bartering, doing things like that, you can do it, especially if you're on a kind of a fixed income and you don't really have any other means of making money. So we've all got extra stuff.
Small World Adventures ask, how can we get our kids involved without worrying them too much?
And that's a good question. That's a very good question. One thing that we do typically is I like to, just make it fun, make it into a project. Whether it's like shooting, we go down and shoot, and it's just for fun. I don't tell them, you're gonna have to use this for self-defense. I just get them down there and we shoot, and they learn how to shoot. Fire starting, that's a great one. Taking them out and just going fishing or doing things like that.
That's right.
Just getting them outside and doing stuff, and just giving them the skills. Even small medical things can be done.
Hiking, camping, hunting. One of them falls down and skins their knee, and you're like, all right, how are we going to fix it? What do we need to do? and walk through the process of what you do to clean it up, and let them, be a part of that, being a part of cleaning up their own boo-boo or their brother or sister's boo-boo. And that way they start learning how to do these things at a young age.
But let me say this about children. Since the beginning of man, we have faced situations a lot greater than even what we're facing right now.
That's right.
And so people have been in really tough, desperate times, and children have gone through that, and they've actually been stronger when they came through it.
Mm-hmm.
So I would be kind of a little bit, you don't want to scare the bejesus out of them, but you definitely want to give them a healthy respect for what's going on.
That's right.
Just like we tell our children, don't talk to strangers. Well, then, all of a sudden now they're totally paranoid of strangers. Well, you still don't want them to talk to strangers.
When it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about being, conditioned green, everything's just rainbows and butterflies. You don't want to raise your children to be that way either. You want your children to be no different than us. You want them to be aware of what's going on. You want them to be aware of their surroundings. You want them to be aware of the people they're around, the environment that they're in, what's going on. And the only way to do that is to teach them, about the ways of the world, how the world is, and explain to them what's going on in the world today and why we make the decisions that we make, what guides our decisions, what guides our principles, and what guides their morals and their values and their principles as well. And bring them into the conversation with you. It doesn't have to be all doom and gloom, but we do need to make sure that our children are aware of our world that we live in today.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, I understand, because you don't want to scare especially
right.
smaller children, but still.
And it has to be age appropriate as well.
Right.
The conversation that I would have with a 5-year-old is not the same conversation that I would have with a 12 or 13-year-old.
Right.
You can be a little more candid with a 12 or 13-year-old about what's going on with the world than you can with a 5-year-old. So it has to be an age appropriate conversation as well.
Tim Rollins asked, what is a good pair of binoculars to take into the field?
Well, the thing is that binoculars, the glass, and one of the things about glass is it's expensive to produce really good quality glass, because the more pure and the better it's finished, the more detail you can see at distance. I have a pair of Leopolds. They're like $1,200 glass. They're super expensive.
Yeah.
Are they worth it? Yes, they're worth it. Now, is it worth it to spend that kind of money and, miss out on other things? I think Nikon makes a really good line of optics, and I have some, I can't remember the name of them now, but they're really good. We take them to the range all the time. But, a good medium price optic, don't buy cheap optics. Yep. There used to be a company, I don't think they're no longer in business, but it used to be Tasco. And they were fine. They were okay to get out and mess around with. But over time, they'd end up breaking, or I still have a pair, actually, a little small pair.
Yeah.
But, and they're fine, but the glass isn't all that great. Just like with your scopes on your rifles, good quality glass allows you to see really fine detail that you don't pick up on cheaper optics.
You really get what you pay for when it comes to binoculars.
Yeah.
You truly do. You get some of the lower end stuff, and it's kind of cloudy. When you look through it, it looks almost milky, like it's a real, here in the South, we live in the Blue Ridge Mountains, and in the summertime, it's very humid outside. So everything has like this haze on it. And the cheaper binoculars, when you look through them, even when it's not hazy outside, those binoculars still look hazy. So it's something that when you start looking at binoculars, I would go out and try a bunch, go to some different stores, look through a bunch of different binoculars, and get an idea of what looks good to you, what looks really clear to you, and let that be kind of your driving force when it comes to your purchasing decision.
Well, Cabela's is a good place.
Absolutely.
Academy Sports,
Yep.
They have a lot of different pair of binoculars you can check right there.
Mm-hmm.
Figure out what's in your budget and
Yep.
kind of go toward the higher end of what you can afford. Don't go with the cheap.
Gas or solar generator?
Well, here's the thing about gas. It's loud. It's very loud. Number two, you got to keep that thing full.
Mm-hmm.
And if gas starts to, becomes any kind of shortage,
That's right.
you're going to have some issues
Like
with that.
we had just a few months ago here.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the loudness and the gas limit
Mm-hmm.
gasoline generators. Now they have their place. We have solar generators and gas generators.
Yep.
I really like the solar, but it's not usually as powerful. In fact, I have one of the humless, and it's very quiet, and we can put our panels out. But on the other hand, you're limited toward the sun. You've got to have full sunlight, and it will work. But then you have to replenish the battery. What you're going to do in the between time. So to me, I like the solar because I can use it even if the grid's down. I can use it out in the middle of nowhere.
That's right.
And nobody knows I'm using it. With the gas, you're going to just be limited to fuel. So it's just one of those things. It's kind of give or take.
When it's one of those that if you have the means, you do both.
Right,
you have your gas generator and you have your solar. You use your solar as a primary, and then if you have to revert to your gas, you use your gas generator to charge your batteries and stuff. For your solar, like if you have a few cloudy days, you're not able to draw in sunlight, you're not able to charge your batteries, you can use your gas generator short term to charge those batteries and keep everything going. That way you can really stretch your gas generator and your fuel longer.
That's good.
JCHMM asked, what concealed weapon is best for a first timer?
Whew, there's another one. Man, there's a lot of choices.
Yeah.
Honestly, right now, there are so many of these 9mm kind of stack and a half pistols, like your SIG P365, your Springfield Armory Hellcat, even the Ruger Max 9, which is a very reasonably priced one.
Yep.
Let's see, the GX4 by Taurus, that's a great little gun, very reasonably priced. So there's a Smith & Wesson Shield Plus. The one thing I like about those is that those single stacks are very thin, but these are not very, they're very little. It's usually about 1/10 of an inch or so.
It's about 1 or 2 millimeters thicker.
You're getting a lot more rounds. So to me, some of those kind of micro 9s that have that double stack magazine is really primary, because here's the other side of it. It gives you more of a full-size feel than a little small concealed carry piece for a full-size gun. So, like the G43X, which is by Glock, it holds 10+1. You can get a 15-round Shield Arms mag for it, and it's a really thin option. So for concealed carry, I would look at something like that. And there's a number. In fact, Kimber just came out with the R7 Mako, which is it's probably the most expensive out of the bunch, but it's a really quality gun as well.
And one of the big things that I always encourage new gun owners that are looking to pick up their first firearm is find an indoor range that you can go and shoot some of these different firearms, because what you pick up out of the case, look at it, it looks pretty, it feels good in your hand, you take it out on the range and you shoot it and you absolutely hate it. So find your indoor range that has some of the firearms that you're interested in, go rent those firearms and shoot them, and then from that point, pick which ones fit you the best. And a lot of times your indoor ranges like that they'll have range safety officers or people there that can take you out on the range and show you how to properly use the firearm, how to hold it, how to stand, sight alignment, sight picture, all the basic fundamentals of using a firearm and using it safely. They can get you started in the right direction, as well as help you make the decision and the choice on which firearm works best for you.
But if that's not an option, if you just can't do that, if there's just not a range that has all those guns, one of the first things that I tell people is if you can get some that are kind of lined up, is to see how it feels in your hand, feel the grip, put it up, rack the slide. Just drop your magazine, rack that slide, see how difficult the slide is, bring it up and see how it naturally points. And so you can do those things, but yes, the main thing, if you can get out to a range, is the best. But that's definitely a way to kind of get a feel for how you're going to like it. Because typically, if you like it in your hand, you're going to like it at the range.
And then the last thing to check too, just like you were saying, if the only option is to be able to handle it at a counter and you're not able to actually shoot it, is to rack the slide, point the pistol in a safe direction, and pull the trigger. And make sure that you can reach the trigger, make sure you can pull the trigger, and make sure you can pull the trigger without disturbing the sights. You don't want the sights moving to the side or moving up and down as you pull the trigger. You want to be able to pull the trigger and the sights stay perfectly aligned.
Peter Watson asked, even with a well with a backup generator, would you still store water?
Yes, because some things can happen. And you don't have to store up a whole ton of water if you're doing that, but and it's according to if your well is attached to electricity.
It depends on the quality of your well. If it's a drilled well or a dug well, if you have the ability to be able to access the water, if it's a dug well, you can access it with a bucket and a rope. If it's a drilled well, you're going to have some kind of pump to be able to pump the water out if you don't have enough pressure. So with that, you need to make sure that you have a replacement parts for if you've got a manual pump on it, you want to make sure you have some replacement parts for your manual pump. Yeah, and then too, like you were saying, one of the big things is like we have a well, and with our well, that well it's about 55 years old. We know that it's a good well. We know that it's never ran out of water, even in really dry years. That we can always depend on there being water in that well. So if you've got an old well that you've got a lot of lifetime experience with, you know that well always has water. Maybe you don't need to store up as much. If it's a newer well that you don't have a whole lot of experience with, don't know how it's going to do during a drought, you may want to store up some water.
Or again, you can think of rain catchment systems according to where you live and how your house is set up.
That's
but
right.
Rain catchment is a great way to be able to store water very passively.
Yep.
Matthew Ramus says, just started prepping. What would be what would be the best practice for getting a more comfortable level and not getting stressed out?
Well, think about it this way. Everything that you do, because prepping you can get into situations where you start to panic.
Mm-hmm.
Prepping is best done incrementally. Every time you go to the store, just pick up some extra food, or maybe even online. Get online, stay within your budget, and just put some funds to those different things. You need to think of, this is what I do. All of my survival plans is the rule of threes. 3 minutes without air, so I got to protect my air whatever I can. 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food, and self-defense and medical flow in between.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I try to do is make sure that I have my water. I want to get my water. I got to figure it out. I need to store up some water until I can get something that may be even a little bit more permanent. And then I'm storing up my food, putting it back, just building it up. Before long, it'll build up. One thing you got to be careful of is that SHTF isn't going to happen tomorrow. Most of the time, but it's not typically going to happen tomorrow. We've had some warning signs, and so you're given the grace to be able to go ahead and go out and do those things. So don't stress out. Once you start putting stuff back, it gives you peace of mind.
Yep.
It's like my buddy Sensible Prepper or Southern Prepper said. He goes, "The more I'm prepared, the less I'm scared." And so just make sure that you think, hey, you know what? Okay, I went to the grocery store. I'm that much farther ahead than I was yesterday. And then just start to build up your preps. But also think about some other things, that are around that area, like having some hand tools and some things that you might need to do some repairs, or having, heavy meal trash bags, contractor bags. Those things are great. You can use them for so many things. So there are things like that. But really, the number one thing to do is to get out there and start researching and learning. We've got a lot of videos about it, 101 on prepping. Watch that video and start to figure out, okay, these are some areas that I need to fill. And get your get home bag ready in your car and make sure your family has one. That's another thing
And I'll tell you, I think some of the best videos that you've done that are geared toward prepping are the 25 ways you can use different things, or 100 ways you can use different things, from popsicle sticks or matchsticks or whatever. I mean, there's tons of different stuff. 550 cord. There's tons of stuff you've done videos on. And those videos, you can go back and watch those videos, and I mean, it's just a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah,
I mean, you could fill books with all of this stuff. And those are the kind of things that you can learn on your own. They're all low cost. You're not going out and spending a ton of money on it. That it's increasing your ability to be able to provide for yourself and be more self-sufficient just with some of these videos, using some low-cost things you probably already have around your house.
But your mind is number one. You can have all the tools in the world, and if you're not really thinking and you're not able to process it, it's not going to do you any good. Yep. The big thing is get your mind together, and then you'll think of ways to do things. So, and then there's like one video we just did. I think it's 30 things a prepper can do for free. Mm-hmm. That's a good one to watch, because there's a lot of different things in there that'll help you to get prepared and get your stuff together. Okay.
Patriot Fever 1776 asks, "Hey Sootch, I am working on a gray man ready vest. I would like something with several interior pockets. Any ideas?"
Okay, I don't know about a vest, and I know there are some out there, but Nine Line has this jacket. I've got one, and it has interior pockets. In fact, it even has AR-15 mag pockets sewn to the inside. But yeah, a vest, I'm sure that there's some options out there. But that's a great idea, because you can go, again, gray man, nobody knows the difference, and you can be fully decked out. So there are options. In fact, I had a ball cap that was that had pockets sewn into the interior, and you can even the bill of the cap, you could put different things in there, nobody'd even know it. And so there are some great options to be able to be fully prepared, and nobody even know that you're that way.
Yeah. Guys for years have used camera vest because they have a lot of interior and exterior pockets.
That's a good idea.
So camera vest have always been a good one. Fly fishing vest are another good one because they have a lot of internal and external pockets. And the fly fishing to me doesn't stand out as much as the camera vest, because it, in the past 15 or 20 years, a lot of guys that shoot competitively tend to start using the camera vest because they're easy to access. You can put a little weight in your pocket. It makes it easy to sweep it out of your way to get to your pistol. So the fly fishing vest, they don't, especially following the gray man concept. I think the fly fishing vest is a lot more low key and doesn't stand out to people that are in the know nearly as much as a camera vest would.
But I would suggest getting online, getting on Google, and just putting in, vest with pockets or something. And a lot of times you'll find things, especially if you go under images, there'll be a ton of things, and you can click on those, and they'll take you to companies you didn't even know about.
That's right.
Lisa D says, I live 20 minutes from Mexico. The human traffickers and cartel are coming in. What if I had a bunch of people on our property? I feel threatened with a whole group of people in Arizona. What do I do? Cartel are armed. Yeah,
that's a terrible situation down there. And if you're alone, that's even worse. So, I don't know all the situation that you're having to deal with as far as your property and things like that. But if you do live near people, and I'm sure they have the same concerns you do, great to network, great to talk about it, great to get people together, and what you can do to maybe make your property less of an inviting for those kind of people to come. So
and then with your personal security, you definitely want to look at layers of security, from a fence, a dog, cameras, maybe another fence, but you want to have layers of security that are going to slow people down, divert people, make it uninviting, make them not want to be on your property or around your house or around you. So anything that you can do to create layers and create space is going to give you more of an opportunity to be able to get the police there or be able to defend yourself if you have to.
Yeah, even some kind of signs, that are just very forceful that you put up, and they think, well, because what they're looking for is an easy prey. And so you need to make yourself as much as you can more formidable, and they'll just go, well, we'll go to this place because it's not near as
right.
But yeah, that's a tough situation, and my heart goes out to you because I can't even imagine having that threat under you all the time. I wish I could help you more, because that's really a scary thing.
CM asks, where's the best location to store a firearm in the car?
State law comes into play here.
Yeah.
For North Carolina, if you're driving in North Carolina and you have a gun, it's supposed to be out on the seat. And we lived in North Carolina for a while. That was a really weird thing, unless you have a concealed carry permit. But now for me here in South Carolina, as long as we can put it in the console, it can be fully loaded, doesn't matter. We can put it in a glove box.
Or the door panel.
Yeah, we can put it in the door if we have a concealed carry permit.
Right. No, you can put it in the door panel without.
Can you? Well, there you go. Learn something new every day. But the thing is if you have a concealed carry permit, it gives you a lot more options.
That's right.
And you may be in a place that that's not possible. But I typically keep mine in my console. Now let me tell you this though. When I had my truck stolen a few years ago, and I had a gun, a 38 revolver, and I had it in a console, and the panel came out, and there was a deep well underneath. And so I would keep it down there with a medical kit and some other stuff. And so when I was having it worked on one time, I thought, you know what, I need to get that out of there. That could just get gone. So I got it out, got my med kit out, and just closed it up. Well, when the guy stole my car from the place that was repairing it, he stole it. And the first thing he did was he got into all this stuff. He knew exactly all these little hiding spaces. So, if you're trying to keep it from someone, one thing I would recommend, especially if you're concerned about you have to leave your firearm in a vehicle, is to secure it with some kind of tie, some kind of metal cable or something. And that'll keep someone from taking it. And there are even these mesh bags that you can put a lock on it and you can tether that down. So, as far as security wise, but as far as driving around, you need to check your state law. see what they say, because you don't want to get caught. I know somebody right now that was from this area that got caught up north and thought he was fine, but when he went through that state, it was illegal. He's in jail right now, so you definitely need to be careful.
Bob McAllister asked, Robbie, can you recommend another company for barrel conversions for the G22 when you don't have them in stock?
Yeah, for G22 or 23 barrels, if we don't have them in stock, I would look at KKM Precision.
Yeah, they are good. Those are excellent barrels. They are.
Daniel Hampton asked, I have a shotgun with side saddle, and should I keep shells on a sling or bandolier, or what do you suggest for grab and go? Thanks, Daniel.
Yeah, all of the above. Keep them on your side saddle, and I would have a sling or a bandolier that you could store shells on as well. One of the downsides to any of your elastic bands that you leave shells stored in, the elastic will start to wear over time, and you won't have as much friction to hold the shells in, and they'll end up wearing out, and your shells will fall out. So it's something that you do want to keep an eye on, and it's something that you want to replace those items every few years if you're going to keep them loaded all the time with the shells in them.
Yeah, maybe get a couple, two or three, and just have backups if they start to come out, because that's the worst thing with that weight that's in the shell already. You twist around, those things can come just flying out.
Yeah, you got your whole bandolier and your sling with shells loaded on it, and you grab it and you take off running, and it's been sitting for the last 5 years, and you get about 30 yards or so, and all of your shells are just littered on the ground behind you.
But even a possible belt that you can use that's made for keeping the shells lined up in there, and that way it keeps them vertical, and you're not having to worry about it as much. So that might be an option you want to look into.
Retired Ray has asked, if you had to choose which you would buy first and why, Berkey water filter or solar generator?
The water, the Berkey.
Absolutely.
Water is number one. You can't live but 3 days without water. So water is vital. In fact, a lot of people they just whatever. And you can't run. We have a really nice stream that runs on our property, and I wouldn't drink out of that, even though it comes over rock and all this, and it's beautiful, but you can't trust natural water sources. We do have a spring, which you can trust, but typically, water would be my first. Generators definitely, or any kind of solar power to be able to keep your phones and your flashlights and all that stuff on is going to be important, but water is like super vital.
Yeah,
super vital.
And that's the difference between life and death and creature comforts.
Right.
So you take care of what's going to take care of you first, and then you take care of what's going to make your life easier and more convenient next.
Right. I agree.
Survival Savage asks, would you use the stuff hikers use for survival?
Yeah, sure. In fact, one time I went to this yard sale, and there were these hikers, and they were just getting rid of a bunch of stuff. Man, it was like a treasure trove. I come out of there grabbing sleeping bags and backpacks, and I've still got those backpacks. And that was 20 years ago.
Well, a lot of that stuff is tried and tested. It's generally lighter weight because you're packing it and carrying it. So it's smaller, it's lighter weight, it's designed to be put in a backpack, it's designed to be carried. So those are the kind of items that you can really look at for like your day pack or your 3-day pack or your get home bag. Those are the kind of items that you want to put in there because they're not going to eat up as much room. They're not going to weigh as much. So you're going to be able to pack more, carry more, and do more with it.
And a lot of it's really good quality.
That's right.
And I would recommend too, just on that same note, is to be careful not to go to some of these budget places to pick up a little backpack that's $20. Is to get you something that's really suitable, it's really sturdy. I mean, I go into REI all the time, and I find little things in there that I'm like, oh, that's good. Oh, that's cool. That's good. Or Cabela's into their sections, and there's a lot of stuff out there that definitely feathers in together. Hunting, camping, hiking, all those things. It'll get you where you're going.
Matt Danielson asks, what's the best way to keep cool after the grid shuts down? I live in Arizona and worry about losing AC during the summer.
Woo! Move north.
Yeah. Well, here's the facts is, the Hopi Indians and the Navajo and all that lived down there for generations that, suffered through a lot of that heat. What did they do? And, a lot of it is just getting acclimated by it. We've gotten so accustomed to air conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's going to be a thing. One big thing is to drink a lot of water.
That's right.
And one thing too, which we do, sometimes we go to the range and we've been shooting a lot, is we'll take our bandanas or our towels and we'll put them in the cooler and then take it and put it around your neck.
Yep.
But that's a temporary thing. But making sure that you just don't overheat yourself. Stay in the shade where you can, stay out of the heat where you can. But then, when you're having to deal with heat, you're having to deal with it.
Yeah, water cooling is also one of the ways that you can keep yourself cool. Be closer to water. The temperature is generally cooler when you're closer to water. But then also having you can do like some water fans that blow mist. You got your fan, then you got the misters that blow water on you, and those do a really good job of cooling you down in the summertime as well if you don't have air conditioning.
Matthew Camilleri asked, I live on an island. What do I do? In Europe, by the way.
And it's according to what countries, what area. It's according to what kind of access. Is it just by ferry? What kind of, how resupply, things like that.
That's right.
Is there game?
That's right.
There
livestock game. You have the ability to garden, grow your own food.
I mean, is it a rock island? I mean, can you grow your own food, right? I mean, so I think there's a lot of things to consider. So what I think is most important for you, just like with anybody with a special situation, is to think it through. Yep. Think about, how can I get this? What am I going to do here? What if I need to get out? That's like people that live in New York City. And we get a lot of people that ask questions.
Yep.
What am I going to do? I mean, the Lincoln Tunnel is going to be shut down, so what do I do? Do I have a little raft? Do I get across, the Hudson Bay, the Hudson River? I mean, what do you do? So, maybe that's one of the things you might want to do. You may have a small boat. You need to get out. Man, we can't get off this island. It's too far to swim. I mean, there's just things like that you're going to need to really do a lot of research and get yourself in good position.
Yep.
Here's the thing, guys, and it's just like this thing with Iraq, with Afghanistan right now. We've been over there for 20 years. And, and we've tried to help these people and to get more self-sufficient to do their own thing. When Mother USA pulls out, all these people are going, fight for yourself, do for yourself. So, and I'm not saying this in a negative way to you, because I would, you find yourself on this island, you need to think it through.
Yep.
But I would definitely, is there fresh water there? I mean, you may be surrounded by fresh water, but is there a way to filter it? What if I can't get food supplies? How am I going to get off this island to get it? So, again, just do a lot of research and just start making a plan. And don't feel like you're crazy, because making that plan puts you ahead of where you are today.
And look at what you need for your basic needs. You have to have food, you have to have water, you've got shelter because you live there already. So then you need to look at how much food and how much water you need for X amount of time. If something happened, how long could you potentially be on the island without being resupplied? And I would look at having at least that much food plus some and water to be able to carry you through any type of grid down situation where you could be on that island for an extended period of time without being resupplied. And then, like you were saying as well, figuring out a way, a secondary means to get off of the island and over to the mainland if that's possible.
Yeah. And two, what this will do is it'll buy you time to help you to figure out some things as well.
That's right.
So yeah, that's a good question though. But that's something I think it takes a lot of research, and you're going to need to just kind of hunker down and think it through.
Brian Sell asked, advice for our drivers.
Truck drivers or drivers. I mean, that's a you're away from home. I mean, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
If you've read the Going Home series, it starts out with the main character being 2 weeks walk away from his family, and that's what he does. The car just stops because of an EMP, and then it's his trek, and then of course you got all the dangers. Having a go bag, that's the first thing. Have yourself a go bag in your vehicle. So if you have to abandon that vehicle, you've got a bag. You've got your necessary things that are in there that are going to get you started. And then learn what's in that bag. Learn how to put the correct things in there. having some water, your food.
And I love having an alternate means of transportation. If you're driving, if you're an over the road trucker, I would have a bicycle on my truck.
Yeah.
I'd have my go bag. I'd have some water and a water filtration system, and I'd have a bicycle, because you can cover a lot more ground every day on a bicycle. Even if you're just sitting on the seat and just kind of walking along, just kind of pushing it, you can cover a lot more ground every day than you can walking. It's going to be easier on your feet. It's going to be easier on your body, and it's going to get you where you need to go a lot faster.
And two, make sure that you have some real maps.
That's right.
Not just just depend on GPS, because that could fail. So
I tell you, it's funny you say that. I had a friend of mine. They went camping this past week. They rented a RV and did like a week and a half RV trip. And they're going up through the mountains. They got their GPS pulled up, and the GPS tells them to turn this way. So they turn and they drive and they drive and they drive 2.5 hours, and they end up coming to this coal mining town in West Virginia, 2.5 hours away from where they were supposed to be. And they were like, oh yeah, it happens all the time. GPS turns people and sends them up this way. But the GPS is not always correct. And you need to have, even if you're relying on GPS, it's always good to have those paper maps, to where you can look at that paper map and verify that what the GPS is telling you is correct.
Right. So yeah, I highly recommend some kind of maps. I keep them in my bag. I have used them for myself to get out of situations. So, but yeah, those things, just put together your go bag. Maybe if you can put together some kind of means of transportation, even a fold-up bike.
That's right.
And then even a scooter, for that matter.
That's right.
And then of course maps, I think, are very important. Okay, it's time. That was a fast hour, and thanks for all the questions. That was really great, and I hope that a lot of you guys got some information from some of these guys asking questions, because that's what it's all about.
Today. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, that was fun. That's kind of nice to be able to talk about some different things, because guys, the one thing you don't want to do is just be inactive. Don't be fearful. Don't be fearful. Be proactive and get yourself in a good situation. At least, even if you're not totally prepared, it gives you a little bit of time to be able to use your mind, and to be able not to panic, but to go, okay, we got this thing down. Let's see where we're going from here. And so thanks for coming in and hanging out with us today. We really appreciate Exotac for sponsoring today's episode. Go to Exotac, use the link down below in the description, get 20% off using Sootch 00. You need fire starters.
That's a hot deal.
And these are made in the USA. They're actually top notch. I mean, they're the best. And so check them out. And I think you'll find some really cool products on there to go into your fire kit, which you really need. A way to start fire, different ways, and multiple ways. Don't just stick with one way to build fires. They're down in Georgia. They're an excellent company, and I really like those guys down there. Also, a big thanks to Sarah Mack for putting all this together and getting us the questions, and Robbie Wheaton from WheatonArms.com. Again, gunsmith for over 20 years, Glock aftermarket parts, and he does custom gun work. So if you have some custom stuff, this is the guy to send it to. And also GoMedGear.com. If you need medical supplies, great resource. And it's like North American Rescue type stuff. In fact, that's where a lot of it comes from. So we really appreciate Robbie for hanging out with us as well. A lot of good stuff today, Robbie.
Enjoyed it.
And we really appreciate you guys for hanging out with us. So be strong, be of good courage. God bless America. Long live the Republic.